to share some thoughts on a very important thing that concerns you and me also, as well as the entire human family. Today, we just want to take a look at the whole concept of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I'm sure, as Andy told you guys, he's giving you a preview of what it's all about. This year actually marks a very important milestone in the declaration itself, because 1948, this declaration was really adopted by the entire United Nations, involving the entire countries all over the world. And where we are concerned as John, sorry, I don't use that by this of proper instructions. This is my analyst. And Kenny Wenger, all of us belong to the Center for Media and Peace Initiative. We are here in New York, and essentially what we do in the Center is to promote a conflict-resolved media practice around the world. And issues bordering on journalism training, journalism practice are very dear to us. And as potential journalists, we think it's important to really have to inculcate some rudiments of journalism practice early enough in some young people who will be able to transform this profession for a better profession tomorrow. Because the truth about the matter is, most people think that journalism is probably not going the right way. Some basic tenets, some basic central mission of journalism somehow are not really there. And we think that the best way to effect change in some of the areas we think we found wanting should be by getting the younger ones, more like catching them young, early enough to be able to put you in the right path. So it's part of this program that we're going to various high schools to really share ideas with them, know what are their concerns, what are their potentials and all, and we hope that in the future it will be very beneficial for them. So at the end of this presentation, I would like to maybe take some questions on issues that bother you in the profession, so as to see areas we can contribute and improve your practice. So basically, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, like I told you, was adopted in 1948 by the United Nations. And the area that actually concerns us is the Article 19. The declaration has a lot of things that border on human rights, various rights of individuals, nations, and all that. But as potential journalists, the area that I think should concern you is the Article 19. Article 19 talks about freedom of expression. And I'd like to quote copiously from the Article 19 itself. Article 19 says that everyone all over the world has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes the right to hold opinions without interference, and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any medium, and regardless of frontiers. So basically, what this thing is talking about is that I and you and everybody, every person in this world has a right to express himself. Much as in the United States, for example, there is some basic elements of compliance to this basic freedom. But I'm not sure you know that there are many areas in the world that don't comply to this argument, because somehow, like you can say anything you want, for example, nobody challenges, you can challenge President Bush and say, look, you're not doing well. There are countries I know, I've been to one particular country where, for example, you cannot publish anything in this paper without the approval of government. So some of these areas are areas I think, do not comply to this basic declaration. And it's not that some of these countries are signatories to this declaration. So, much as we also have these basic rights here in the United States and some other parts of the world, and I also want to share some thoughts in the area of talk about freedom and responsibility. Because much as you have that freedom, you cannot use this freedom recklessly. Like, you may have an experimental newspaper in this college, but you cannot just publish anything just because you cannot begin to kind of insult or not or malign your teachers or any of the students just because you have freedom. You have been told you have the freedom to write whatever you want to write. So in other words, there is a limit to every freedom. There is no absolute freedom. So most freedom are relative, and in one way or the other, you gotta be responsible for whatever you say as a reporter, and that calls for basic social responsibility. And I do think that maybe as you progress in your journalism practice, you begin to hear things like social responsibility theory on the press. So that will encourage you to be mindful of whatever you write and considering the environment and whoever you're talking to. So, and I also told you about this Article 19, which is critical. I also want to, get some questions, from you on that, what it means to you as I have read it, and how you think it should be really implemented in the school, outside the school, and wherever. So, and let me also, still talking about freedom, you discover that even before the adoption of this declaration, in 1948, about 58 countries were in attendance to adopt this declaration in Paris, France. But unfortunately, just to demonstrate why there will always be like opposition to various causes like during the school, like we say in democracy, the majority may have their way, the minority must have their say. So everybody did not sign on to this declaration. 58 countries gathered, 48 out of these 58 signed this declaration. So 8 of them abstained, especially, like some of you may have heard about the Soviet Republic, Union of Social Soviet Republic, the Soviet Union. So obviously they opposed it, and some of those republics around there, because of the communist environment that dominated the era at that particular time. So there were some other countries that did not sign. But a whole lot of other countries signed, and it was adopted. So why I have brought out this point is because there will always be room for opposition for a democratic process to be really and truly be democratic. There has to be an opportunity where there has to be pluralism. There has to be, an ability to be able to hear alternative voices. So if you stay here as a reporter, always believe that the other person, you should give the other person an opportunity to be heard. Much as you are the editor of a newspaper, does not give you the ultimate power to determine everything or to kill anybody or to say whatever I want to say. You must also consider the fact that other persons must have their own say. Just like they also say in law that one of the cardinal principles of fair justice is, listen to the other person. Because even God himself, before God condemned Adam, he gave Adam an opportunity to be able to respond to his charges. So at the same time, as a reporter, you must also consider this thing in whatever you intend to write. So that's about that. And talking about this opposition itself, it brings us back into a lot of things that are going on even in this country right now, whereby sometimes some authorities think that opposition to their policies means dissent or being unpatriotic. So, and we reject that kind of notion because in a democracy, people should say their mind. And in the process, because in the context of ideas, good innovations, good policies emerge. There is a situation where we live perhaps in a country where we cannot express our views and our rights. It becomes questionable whether we adopt true democratic values. So it is critical that we get to know this. So, and I also would like to go through, because I'm trying to really, I'll leave this copy for a teacher, maybe you make copies I need to. I also want to look at some basic concepts about some basic principles about freedom, articulated by an organization called Article 19, it's based in London. So the Human Rights Organization, with a stated mandate and focus on defense and promotion of freedom of expression and freedom of information worldwide, has drafted the following principles that should underpin any legislation on freedom of information. So the first principle is maximum disclosure. freedom of information legislation should be guided by the principle of maximum disclosure. I believe that as journalists students will be following some trends. Trends, if you remember sometime last year or 2 years ago, a reporter was kind of in fact jailed for not disclosing her source of information about a CIA operative that was outed, sort of, that her identity was disclosed, and there was an inquiry to find out who actually disclosed this to, which is contrary to the law of the land. So if you follow the trend then, you will have seen some challenges that really confront today's media practitioner, today's news professional. So, and it borders on this maximum disclosure, which of course some legislation is being changed to be able to take care of some of these things that probably we have experienced in the past. So, and the obligation to publish is the second principle. Public bodies should be under an obligation to publish key information. And thirdly, there should be a promotion of open government. Open government talks about public bodies must actively promote open government. Like organizations like us, we're interested in promoting open government. And open government is all about transparency. It's all about avoiding things that, like when you want to enact a legislation, you should go through the process, embracing due process, and so on. So I think I must pause at this point, maybe it's because when I discuss this, I like to make it interactive. So I have a couple of other principles, but I don't want a situation where it's just coming out from me. So I want let's just digest and look at whether you're able to appreciate or comprehend what I've been talking about and have some of your concerns and issues that you want to raise. Because you must be able to, stick to the time we have to be able to discuss something. Any questions so far?
Any questions about the literature?
How the media treats human rights and stuff like that.
How the media treats human rights. Right. Okay. Well, I think that's what you're looking at. What people human rights. Can we look at it from that perspective? Can anybody tell me what is considered human rights? You want to try it? Anyone? Anybody? Yeah? Okay.
Right to freedom of speech, freedom of press, pursuit of happiness, all the things that are written in the Bill of Rights and rights.
Any other person? That's a good attempt, yeah. So, more comments, yeah. Here you go. Yes? Say anything, just make a contribution. Yes?
I guess maybe what he wants to find out is whether you guys really understand what we're talking about so far.
First of all, human rights are God-given rights. So, what are
aren't they like the rights you're born with?
say that again?
The rights you're born with?
More or less something like that. The money that you're born with.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it when people get to make their own decisions in their own life?
Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
human rights are concerned.
Okay. Just like she rightly said, human rights are the rights every one of us is born with. And that's why I said it's God-given rights. First of all, the right to life. No person has the right to terminate their life, or you have no right to terminate any other person's life whatsoever, no matter what. Well, it goes to the argument about, the capital punishment, execution and all that. But, for me to tell you, I'll get into a lot of nitty-gritty about law and all that. But basically, human rights are God-given rights. First of all, the right to life. Like freedom of expression. We have this right to be able to say whatever we want to say, but with the caveat, some responsibility. So there is a right, freedom of association, freedom of religion. In other words, you are allowed to profess whatever religion you want.
Basically, the First Amendment.
All those issues. These are basic rights. So apparently, it's called human rights are all the rights that we were given when we were born. You have the right to choose where you want to stay. You have the right to choose any group you want to join, and things like that. So these are human rights. Now, going back to the question he has asked, how does the media treat human rights issues? Basically, I think the media treats human rights issues with passion, knowing that they are the last line of defense for the ordinary person, the last line of defense for human rights. So that is why human rights basically is a very topical issue for the media and some of us who are in the activist sector. So if you look at it, the media takes it very seriously when it concerns maybe putting someone in jail when the person is supposed to be in jail. It takes seriously, like when you watch on television, for example, a child is abducted, a child is kidnapped, or some of these pedophiles and all that. So it takes it very seriously. These are human rights. Or when there is an unwarranted attack on the freedom of expression, either freedom to write or freedom to communicate or something. But the law that guarantees these basic freedoms, in a way, conspires to also take part of this freedom away from us. The issues of libel, sedition, and all that. You know what I mean by libel?
Libel?
Libel. Yeah. You know what it is? You know what's called slander? Slander. Yeah. Okay. Basically, these are defamation laws. They must have taught you about that. In other words, some of these things, in a way, takes away some of these basic rights you do have. Because assuming there was unlimited freedom to say or publish whatever you like to publish, then I should say you're a thief when I try to prove it, and I should get away with it, right? But because I cannot just say something I cannot substantiate, and cannot, for example, accuse you for whatever I know it's wrong and you did not do. So, you see how it is? Or I cannot even attack President Bush maliciously. Because there's a kind of attack I will, unleash on him as a reporter. It could be regarded as sedition because I will be inciting the people to remove a government through unlawful means. So, you know this distinction, the difference between sedition, libel, and slander, right? So, basically, that's how I will approach the matter when I look at how the media treats human rights. I think they treat it seriously, and in concert with the judicial arm of the government. Don't forget, as for the state of the realm, we are also trying to, coordinate the other, sectors of government, the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. So I also think that in treating human rights issues, we also create a conscious approach to make sure other arms are doing their jobs very efficiently. More comments?
Yeah. Maybe let me say something a little bit. You guys know about the ongoing case in Texas with the polygamy sect?
Polygamists, they raise all the children out of that Texas sect.
You didn't know that? Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Polygamy is when one guy marries several women.
It was on TV about 2 weeks ago when the authority went into the ranch and took all the kids, about 400 and something kids. Did you see it on TV? Sorry.
Yeah, they took them out, they spread the kids out amongst foster homes, and they're having trouble getting them back.
Right?
Looks like sort of a cult. They were wearing long dresses and stuff like that. You know?
Okay.
You might have seen pictures or something.
Okay, what I'm trying to say about that is that, okay, no matter, it is the responsibility of the government to make sure that nobody, when it comes to child abuse, right, it's the responsibility of the government to protect the kids and prosecute whoever is responsible for that, right? And also, it is also the responsibility of the government to make sure that they don't kind of intrigue into private families. Take for instance, the mother has a kid, right? And the government cannot just get into the house, grab the kid, and leave. If the government feels that the child is being abused, there's going to be evidence to prove that. Because the mother has the right to be with the kid, the government has the right to protect the kid. In Texas, what happens is that, for those of you that didn't hear that, someone called from this polygamous sect, right? That the kids are being abused. They're being married out to older men before 18, right? So the government just went in there, grabbed all the kids, like 400 or something kids. Okay. You get it? And then left. Now, the judgment came yesterday. Okay, and the judges were like, the government did not have, the government will have not been able to prove. First of all, they didn't know who made that call. The people from the right said it was a hoax. Nobody, nothing, nobody made any call. Right? So the government now was found like they did the wrong thing. Right? In as much as it's their responsibility to protect the kids, you need to have evidence that they kind of they went against the human rights of both the mother and the kid. Okay, so now, just like what he was saying, that the government is liable. Of course, you know what's going to happen after yesterday, the lawsuits and whatever. Okay, so to touch on what he's saying, the government has no right to get into your home and do whatever they want to do. You have the right as a child to live with your mother. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, I think one important thing you have reminded me is the whole concept of invasion of privacy. You know, I'm sure maybe Adam you must have told about that, or maybe later I get into that. The whole concept, like we're talking about rights. You know, you have the right to be left alone. You understand what I'm saying? I cannot just get into your private life and begin to poke into your private life without permission. But at the same time, I must always provide this caveat. Much as the law says it should not be, your rights should be protected, or nobody should invade your privacy. But if you become a public figure, you know what I mean by being a public figure? Like if you become like a politician, a very popular politician. You know, there are some you see that way some of these basic rights. Because you're not a public property. So you cannot say because you're Clinton, I should not know how your bed looks like. You know, that I should not know how maybe you probably would be interested in knowing what kind of food does this guy eat? Is he really a human being, or what is happening to John McCain? Does he like nobody will worry about my age, whether I'm good or not. You know? Nobody will worry about it. But you see some of these things being reported because, he's a public figure. Or you're talking about President Bush or what's his name, even Obama or something.
Or even, I think the one from the celebrities.
Exactly.
You always know what's going on with Beyonce, right? Okay, what kind of restaurant she goes to, what's going, is she pregnant, or something like that. As an individual, you're not a citizen. Nobody has the right to ask you that kind of question. But if you're a public figure, people will start asking that kind of question. And you can't shy away from that. You have to answer it because you're up there on the podium. Everybody wants to know what's going on in your bedroom, and you got to answer that.
Britney Spears is always running away from paparazzi, something like that. So that is how these things are. So it's important that I just brought that out about invading one's privacy and stuff. So are there other issues you want us to talk about? Questions?
But what you just talked about, we've talked about in the past how newspapers nowadays, a lot of the stories are about celebrities instead of important issues that affect, more people. So that we read, Beyonce's on the cover.
Yes.
Or Britney Spears is on the cover because
Yes.
she drank too much and got into a car accident. Instead of, things that are happening, atrocities around the world and things like that, So what's happened with the media is they want to sell newspapers and they sort of want to just keep us happy and not think about bad stuff that's going on around the world. So we read about Britney Spears and we read about who won American Idol and that kind of stuff, where there are people dying of starvation, and there are in Myanmar, the government won't let they're letting aid come in now, but the big cyclones that killed let's say 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That's crazy. If you were to take what stadium fits 100,000 people? Not Giant Stadium. I think Giant Stadium seats 5,000. If you've ever been in a large stadium, put everybody in a seat in that stadium, and what you have is the amount of people who are dying in Myanmar, or even in the China earthquake and stuff like that. But what do we have on the cover of our newspapers? Let's see. Here's today's.
Oh, yeah.
Help find my hero. All right, guy did a nice thing. He saved somebody from drowning right there. And let's see, clock's ticking on Willie's job. Clock ticking on Willie's job. Anybody know who that is? Willie Randolph, that's right. So on the front page of a newspaper with thousands of people dying around the world, we've got whether a baseball manager is going to be fired or not. That's the Daily News. But look, I have these papers, so I like to read them also. What do we have? Oh my gosh, man in Vice.
Yeah, Obama.
Oh my God.
Now, it's put sort of like a funny, comical way, but actually this is a little bit more serious. It's about the presidential campaign, and anybody know what Vice means?
Yeah, it's something wrong.
Yes, but what does it mean here? Vice is like prostitution, gambling, but what does it mean here? What?
No.
Wait, Vice President.
Vice President. Yeah.
Vice President, yeah. And also, there's a reason the Post uses that word. They also, they want sex in there and stuff like that.
It's true. So, thank you, Epi. Going back to what he has just said, let's just wrap up. You see, like what he has said, this is one of the problems we are already having in the media itself. We are concerned that the media has really developed its central mission in society. In other words, the media now tells the audience what they want to hear and not what they need to hear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you explain what it is? There's a difference between what you want and what you need to have. So, like the writer pointed out, apparently because at that somehow too, the media is kind of following the trend of society in terms of what they want to do, and these things are propelled also by economic interests. Because to run a newspaper is very expensive. So if you concentrate on really focusing on the central mission of journalism, others will go on all these extravagance and all these mundane issues to attract listeners or readers, and in the process make more money.